42% to its GDP and 30% to export. Thanks to export revenue, it's important that the youth understand the importance of delving in this sector to provide food security, fight against unemployment, poverty, misery, and so on and so forth. We have 4 gentlemen coming from the southwest region of Cameroon to delve on this topic with the intention of bringing the youth to involve in the sector and develop that sector in their country, Cameroon. We welcome Mr. Jude Kebuma Emmanuel, who is a researcher and also the writer of a book, Agricultutral, Fighting Poverty and Improving the Livelihood of People. Next to him is Dr. Justin Okole, who is working with IRAT. He's joining us also tell us the technical aspects that youth must consider in order to delve in this sector for development and food security. Right opposite Dr. Okole Justin is Mr. Jude Emmanuel, also joining us from the southwest region of Cameroon, a business development manager who represents the CEO CSO here on VOV 51. And next to Mr. Jude Emmanuel is Dr. Pride Mofo, a researcher of medicinal plants and animals, to share his expertise with us and make us understand why we must delve into bee farming, honey farming, and other farming initiatives that can help us fight poverty, unemployment, and also strive for commercial activities. We're thanking you, gentlemen, for joining us on VOV 51. We're thanking you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on this show. Okay, we may want to start with you, Mr. Jude Kebuma, because you're the backbone behind this initiative today. In your opinion, what would you say agriculture is?
Agriculture, to me, it's actually a means for us, for people, to get a living, to earn a living. You can't live without food, and agriculture is basically looking for a means to get food. So to me, that's a normal and very simple definition on agriculture, and we will know it. But it goes in so many different dimensions. Subsistence level, that goes to local production, that goes to plantation monoculture level, it goes to plantation big parastatals like CDC that we have here, and so many other Hevecam and so on. So it is divided in so many categories. But the simple thing about it is every single person can be one of them. No matter what is subsistence level, you can move it from subsistency to something big, and you can also export it in so many different ways to feed the so many mouths out there in the world.
Dr. Justin Okole, how lucrative is the agriculture sector in Cameroon?
Actually, like he said, first you have to understand that agriculture is cultivation of crops and raising of animals, either for direct consumption or for sale. You know, you can sell either the direct animal or the crop or the products. In Cameroon, what to understand is that if you look at it very well, the agricultural sector in Cameroon is mainly, subsistence, with very few large plantations or commercial farms at all levels, be it animal production, be it crop production. Realize that majority of the people that are engaged in agriculture are the peasant, what we call peasant farmers, doing it at a very small scale, very small, with rudimentary traditional methods and means and tools and equipments for doing that. But on the other hand, we have very few large commercial in agro industries and plantations which go mechanized. That's the setup for me at this level in Cameroon.
Dr. Pride Mofo, what definition would you give to the word agriculture, and would you say it's lucrative in our country?
Yeah, I think agriculture, as my brother rightly said, have to do with meeting with the basic agricultural needs of the people. It's all about, living a better life, because you can't do without food. And that's why, to me, I still believe that agriculture still remains the backbone of Cameroon's economy. If we can improve on agriculture and work more on that, then it's going to be a way forward.
Mr. Jude Emmanuel, we need your definition of the word agriculture, and you tell us from your own, from your findings, whether or not it's lucrative in Cameroon.
Agriculture, I think it's one of the inventions that changed the world. For us to be able to domesticate plants that were normally wild in the forest. But when it started, it was just about meeting needs. But these days, we go further than meeting our basic needs to supplying others' needs or trading one product for a different product. These days, we trade agricultural products for money, and we could use the money for so many different things. So agriculture has turned from being something you do to feed yourself to a business. So I see agriculture more or less as a business, as any other business. Producing a computer, producing a cabbage, or producing cassava, it's a business. And that's the way we should see agriculture. In terms of being lucrative, I doubt if it is lucrative yet. It has the huge potential to be very lucrative, but I'm not sure it's yet lucrative. And probably we'll delve more into that as the show goes on.
As much as it has the potentials, Mr. Kebuma, you talk of fertile land, and maybe you'd actually censor some of the aspects that we have to consider when we are delving in the agricultural sector. Why do we have the impression that many people are actually renouncing from the agricultural sector?
It has to do, first of all, with the perception that people have when it comes to agriculture and farming specifically. Because if we're talking about the youths, they're the backbone of the country and the backbone of the world, the global world per se. Now, if you ask any youth, you can sample opinions for about 10 people on the street. The first thing they'll tell you about agriculture is an old person has maybe some torn clothes or carrying a small tool like a cutlass and something. That's the notion that people have about agriculture. And we also know agriculture is something that only people who are in the village, in the hinterlands, that they are the ones, people that for the social group, they are for the people who are poor. They are the ones that can actually carry on agriculture. But it is something different. It is because we don't know what agriculture entails or what agriculture is all about. Because if we know, like my colleague said, it's business, and business entails money. We live with money, and you can do so many other things with money. And if we know that every single thing that we put on, even the dresses that we put on, stems from agriculture, then we'll have to understand the importance of it. Because this is cotton. Cotton is what? It's agriculture. You see? So every single thing. So the youth should be more involved in that. More involved in the sense that we should look at a sector to be a very rich sector. I will give, for example, let's look at Southwest region. Now, if you look at Southwest region, you look at Fako division. That's the seat of a CDC. That's the main seat of CDC, is Fako division. And when you look at the landmass, it's about 100 and something, close to 120 hectares of land. But CDC alone occupies 47 of it. But then, there's a small catch in it. We still have wastelands, lands which has not been exploited. They are still there in the zone that has CDC. Then look at Manfe Manu. Manu has about 300 and something thousand, almost 3 times the size of Fako. Then you go to Njan. Njan has 900 and something thousand. That is how many times? Almost 9 times the size of Fako. So you see how underutilized the land is. And how many people are in Njan? Few. Why? People migrate to come to cities. We come to cities for better greener pastures as we think. But when we come here, we don't have anything. But you have a land. Land, my father always say, soil doesn't fool you. Anything you put inside, you come out with something. So if we know that and we go back to it, I think the youth will be a better place. We will not be sitting and thinking of the government. Because actually, if I will not tell you a lie, Cameroon is one of the countries. It's strange to see that the public sector, it's the most lucrative sector in Cameroon. It's not supposed to be that. The private sector is supposed to be. Private sector is supposed to be the backbone of any economy. But Cameroon, everybody wants to go to public service. It's wrong.
Mr. Jude Emmanuel, despite the potential that the fertile land, the country regorges, permit me that term, why do we have graduates coming from the agricultural schools preferring to work in companies than actually seize farming options for development?
I think there are a few reasons why graduates might not be interested in agriculture. First is the image of agriculture. People think agriculture is dirty. As he rightly said, the image of an old man with a machete, wearing rain boots or going to the farm. So there is that image. So I spent so many years going to school. Why should I go and do what my parents have been doing for so many years without any real income generation from it? So there is that element. And the youth as well, there's that poor education. We don't have serious agricultural education in Cameroon. So people don't really have the agriculture skills. I know there are a few HND courses here and there, but it's not formalized. When I was growing up, my father was a farmer, but I couldn't see myself having a career in agriculture because there wasn't any clear-cut career path for me to follow in agriculture. So that's one of the main reasons I would very much like to be a lawyer, because I know a lot of rich lawyers, but I don't know personally a lot of rich farmers or clean farmers, let me say so. So that's one of the things. And the most important thing is agriculture is not lucrative for the youth at the moment. Our agriculture is actually focused more on cash crops like cocoa in the southwest, for instance. We are the highest producers of cocoa in Cameroon, the southwest region. So when I look at the statistics, when I look at what these people have to put in and what they get out, is very, very small. So we, as the young people growing up, we see that. We see how many hours our parents spend on a cocoa farm, and we see the income they get out. It's not that. It's not
encouraging at all.
It's not encouraging. So that's why we need, first of all, to change the image of agriculture. Second of all, to encourage people to get into the kind of products that are actually lucrative.
You may want to react. You just send us your messages or your questions to the panelists through the number 7947-5415. 7947-5415. Dr. Justin Okole, you are an entomologist working with IRAT. Are there not modern techniques that could be used to develop the agricultural sector?
Actually, there are a lot of techniques that could be used to modernize agriculture in Cameroon. Even if it is not techniques that have been developed in Cameroon, there are techniques that have been developed by other researchers, other technologists outside the country, which we can still import and use. But the issue is that even from Cameroon, improving production techniques for farmers, we have scientists, who have researchers who could carry out research, could improve all these things. But for me, from my own opinion, I think that the government is really not putting enough effort to encourage research. If you want to modernize research, if you want to modernize agriculture, you have to improve research. You cannot modernize agriculture and leaving the research component out of it. We'll just be wasting our time and turning. Because if you look at other countries, like a typical example like Malaysia. Malaysia is a country, at first they used to pollinate their palms manually. That is, you take pollen grains, they climb up and have to take the male gamete, be put in the female gamete for them to have fruits. You can imagine how laborious that was. But they understood that in Cameroon we don't do such. So they sent a researcher, came to Pamol, Indian Lobby Estate. He stayed there, Dr. Said stayed there for 2 years, studying how pollination is carried out in Pamol in Cameroon, and discovered that it was done naturally by some small insects, beetles. How did he do? He took just a couple, that is 5 male, 5 females, back to Malaysia, and they built them a very big laboratory for rearing. He reared them and then exposed them to the environment. And today, Malaysia, those insects are pollinating the palms. And Malaysia, I think, one of the highest producers of oil palm in the world. So what am I saying? I'm saying that if you encourage research, agri-research or whatever research, scientific research and whatever, we can change a lot of things in Cameroon.
Dr. Pranmo, for you are a researcher in medicinal plants and animals. What are some of those fruitful domains that a youth who wants to delve in the sector must take into consideration?
Yeah, I think one of the main things I've been talking about is this aspect of beer farming, for instance. A lot of people need some sugar, and research has proven that all synthetic glucose is inferior to pure honey. So if we can commercialize bill farming, is going to be a way forward. So I think the greatest problem we have in this domain is exposure, motivation, and supervision. Because if we can actually expose and activate the people who are into the milieu, is going to be a way forward. For instance, when I was researching on the honey, it's a whole nutritional package, I discovered that there is somebody in Bamboo, my servant, Mr. Clement. He started doing it locally for the family. But after writing this book and the importance of honey, a lot of people needed the honey. With this book now, I had to expose him. He has now decided to go commercial, and if you go now in his bee farm, he have about 122 beehives. So he is not only now producing locally, he has started looking means of what transporting. Because presently, as we are talking, we have people who buy and take to Nigeria. So if we can activate, motivate people by exposing them, speaking for them as we are doing here, then the thing can go commercial. Then I've been talking to you about snails. You go everywhere. All you know, snail's meat is soft, tender, medicinal, and nutritive. 0% cholesterol. Out of the 10 amino acids needed by the human body for proper growth and development, snails have about 9. But we are not making use of. The few people who are really into snail farming are not able to meet the population. So these are lucrative areas that we invest on, supervise, then is going to improve a lot in this domain of agriculture. Because I've been able to, with this work, you find out during holidays, farmers are not only selling to hawkers, to retailers. Retailers are selling to hawkers. If you go around my 17, the whole place is snails, start questioning why. It is because of exposure. So we still need to expose them and then try to brand the milieu, give the milieu a color that is going to be appetizing. Because to me, everything is all about packaging. Everything is all about packaging. Agriculture has a lot to do. We should activate the unactivated, motivate the unmotivated, represent the unrepresented, and speak for the voiceless by bringing them closer.
We're expecting your messages, ladies and gentlemen, not your calls. Send your messages to 79475415. Your messages should be short and concise so the panelists will be able to address your issues of concern. Mr. Jude Kebuma Emmanuel, from every indication, we have a whole lot. We have potential, but we have a group of people who are not ready to delve into the sector because they consider it dirty. And the little we even have, we spend our time exporting. That's why we come up with Africana Natum. How is this useful to our own environment, knowing that we must ensure food security?
First and foremost, you mentioned some of the fact to talk about a particular crop. I want to dwell on that first. We talk about like coffee and cocoa that so many people want to cultivate, and you end up, they spend a lot of time, a lot of money, and as a child you discover that your parents don't get much, so it discourages you from agriculture. Now, I'll also go back to my locality I came from. People in small support area in Boya, people did not plant cocoa nor coffee. They had few. But the thing is, there are crops that you can plant, local crops that people need every day. You have pepper, you have what we call okra, you have plantains, you have these things. Now, people need it every day. A bunch of plantain now costs about 3,500 francs. So we shouldn't sit there and say agriculture is nothing, look at that cocoa farm. No, forget about the world market issue. Because cocoa, we don't determine the price. The world market determines the price. We should forget about those type of crops. We have a lot of heads in Nigeria, almost about 3 million, 300,000 inhabitants, 300 million in the population is that. It's a lot of population. You have Equatorial Guinea everywhere. So people need food. So what do? If a youth, you decide to go back to your village, you have land. Most of those chiefs, they have land. They are just there. They need people to come and cultivate. Just take one, just a hectare of land and say you want to cultivate just plantains. Just imagine how many bunches of plantain, how many stalks of plantain you can plant for one season. How many bunches you can harvest per season. You see the amount of money you get is enormous. When I look at that, my locality, for instance, I discovered that you have like okra and pepper. They don't longer grow it there. Who were the ones who cultivated it? They are Igbo people that came from Nigeria. When I started looking at the amount of money that they get, You say they don't have money. It's because our parents don't tell us the amount of money they make on the farms. You say, for instance, you have a bag of pepper. It sells now for almost about 25,000 francs. A big bag. Now you go to the farm. You have a small farm. You can harvest per harvest about 4 or 5 of those bags. Just 4 or 5. 25,000 francs per harvest a week. If you go, you harvest twice a week. You go one time, you have 100,000 francs. Now, can a civil servant compare with you?
Certainly
It
not.
is something that people don't see, but it is something you don't put in much. It's only labor that you need.
How do we open your eyes to see these things that are unseen?
Yeah, let me say that I totally agree with my colleague there. But what I was trying to say is, if you look at the number of hectares that are covered in the southwest by cocoa, they're more than what is covered by pepper. So what I was trying to drive at is that we should focus on producing food, which is not only that is very lucrative, it's also an issue of national security, because if you look at what is happening in Egypt now, it started in 2008 when the prices of bread went too high. So it's a matter of national security, it's a matter of food security and sovereignty, food sovereignty. It creates jobs, and it contributes greatly to the well-being, the natural well-being and our social well-being of the people. So that's what I was saying, that we shouldn't focus on cocoa, palm, rubber, or coffee. We should be producing what we need like pepper, cassava, potato, okra. That's what I was trying to say. So that's why I, even having been educated in a very different discipline, has decided to concentrate on agriculture, because we need people who don't only say these things, but actually doing these things. So the first thing to address the youth issue is, as I mentioned before, a clear career path. People should know that I go to secondary school. After secondary school, I go to an agricultural school. I get a qualification that is recognized. I have a university level qualification. Then after that, I can get a job in a formal sector, not in the informal sector. I don't want to just go there and carry my own hoe or whatever and start doing. No, we want to be formalized, so that I can brag among myself, my friends, and say, oh, I'm an agribusiness executive and I'm making so much and so much money. So that's the first thing that has to be addressed, is the career path. Then we educate people on what is actually lucrative within the agriculture sector.
Dr. Kola, we are going to take this message from someone in Yaoundé, hoping that you'd give an answer to her preoccupation. She's trying to say that, just a moment, though our government preaches emergence through agricultural development, they give importance only to graduates from Enam who are brains behind the inertia we are suffering from. Abi Enongene in Yaoundé, an expert that you are in the sector, how can this be refurbished?
Like we have been saying, agriculture is still not perceived as important in the youths, especially in Cameroon, because of the perception that people have. One, he said, people think that agriculture is just dirtying their hands and dirtying their palms and all those type of things, or some wretched man with boots and dirty clothes going with push or trucks to the farm, or wheelbarrows. But you see, in Cameroon, like he said, the public sector has been given a lot of importance. The public service has been given a lot of importance. That everybody, some people even think that if you don't enter ENAM, you don't enter ENS, your whole life is finished. Or if you are not recruited directly into public service, your whole life is finished. And therefore, look other things as not important. I think first, we must try by sensitizing the population. We have to sensitize the population. We have to make them know the importance of this agriculture. I teach part-time in the University of Buea, the Faculty of Agriculture and Veterinary Medicine. Now, when they launched calls for students to be recruited, to come in, you know, at one time I told some of my cousins, oh, you know, I would like you to go to the Faculty of Agriculture. You know, it was like, hey, hey, uncle, I bet agriculture, go farm. You know, it's like, it's very funny. You know, they look at it a type. That is why you see the population that is still going into that new faculty is still very low. It's still below what we expected, you know. But the dean has been doing a lot of things to send teachers out, even right to the Indian, the BLM areas, to sensitize the population about the importance of agriculture, about what you can gain, about your career profile if you take agriculture. And we hope that this time, you know, there will be an improvement. Even in UIDB, the University Institute of the Diocese of Buea, where agriculture is one of the schools there, you know, it has the lowest population, very low, you know, until at time other teachers will say, no, they should scrap it off, you know, very low because of the nation. But they also went, we had a meeting, and they said they were going to go out there to sensitize, talk about it, let people know the importance.
Okay. Why is it even necessary to emphasize on agricultural development when nothing is being done to improve the farm-to-market routes?
On that note, I'll disagree a little bit with our expert from Iraq there. In terms of research, I don't think we lack agricultural research anywhere in the world. Cameroon, some of the research from Iraq is actually well leading in agricultural research. So we don't lack research. We don't lack markets because we have a huge market, as it says. Nigeria is 160 million. If you add the 30 million from the CEMAC region, which we can trade freely, you're talking about close to 100 million. So we have the market. We have the land, as he said. So we have everything. Everything is actually set. We have the government. Yeah, that is all on the plate. But the Cameroonian government is spending quite a lot of money on agriculture. People simply don't know this. But there's a lot of funding out there from the government, from the international organizations. If you have a good business plan in agriculture, you will find funding one way or the other. So everything is there. The main problem is people. We don't have people who are interested in agriculture in a higher level. You know, we have a lot of people going to the farm, what I call micro-entrepreneurs or micro-farmers. There's so many of them, but we don't have people with proper business plans that can do a proper project, a proper internationally funded project in agriculture. And this is what in my organization we're trying to do and demonstrate and say there is funding, there is support out there. We just need people who are interested and willing to access these resources.
Okay, this one coming for you. Mr. Lekunze, you said agriculture is business. We don't do business without capital. Youths don't have capital to do large-scale agriculture.
Yes, unfortunately, it's a problem. I usually say this, it's a problem. If you cannot raise $1 million francs in Cameroon, it's going to be very difficult for you to do any reasonable business. So there is that problem. At the micro level, there is no finance. There's very little or no finance. But if you have a project that exceeds $1 million and it's a very realistic project, and you're coming in with your own ancestral land or connections with people who have land, it's very, very easy to raise finance. But at the micro level, there is a serious problem.
Okay. Do you think the Cameroonian cannot become rich with agriculture? The problem is the lack of encouragement from the government. This one comes from someone, unidentified person. So there's the problem of conception still.
I think the main thing we need is a renewal of our mindset and commitment to the agriculture. That's the truth about it. Because we were all born with God-given talent. I know of people who are doing good agriculture, doing so well with little or no education. So it's all about motivation, exposure, a renewal of our mindset, and giving agriculture the importance which it deserves. To my own opinion.
Jude Emmanuel from Fundong would like to know exactly what kind of policies and motivation we can give to the youth so they can actually delve in the agricultural sector.
I will start first. Before I answer that question, I'll go back to the aspect of the government. You said the government are spending lots and lots of money to the agriculture sector. It might be true on paper, but I don't see it physically. The ministries might have the money. They might tell you that you can write a project and they give you. But now, how do they allocate it? That is a problem of allocation. Now, when I did the research on Native Africanum, on Ero, and I discovered something which was very, very bizarre. And till date, when I think about it, it's like I'm shaking. I went to Easy Now when I did the research, and I discovered something. There's a market there. I really call that an economic term de facto monopoly. Because it exists, only 2 people have export license for Ero. So if you see all those trucks that leave and they are going to Easy Now, they have 3 market days. It's owned by 2 individuals. Now I want you to understand something, and let's face it. We are talking about the government. We are the government. Now, how do? We need to look and find solutions to those things. If I take a truck of Ero now to Easy Now, nobody buys. You can try it. You stand it there, nobody buys it. It will stay there and get rot. The only thing is you have to, if you don't pass through those 2 individuals, you cannot sell. Now, how do you stay that type of a market? How do you say in a country that has to export something that so many people are dying for? Now, this one, for instance, Ero, most people get it from the bush. It's a non-timber forest product. It gets